Little boy's love for his family. I was walking around in a big bazaar store doing a shopping, when I saw a cashier talking to a boy couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 years old. The cashier said, "I'm sorry, but you don't have enough money to buy this doll." Then the little boy turned to me and asked, "Uncle, are you sure I don't have enough money?" I counted his cash and replied, "You know that you don't have enough money to buy the doll, my dear." The little boy was still holding the doll in his hand. Finally, I walked toward him and I asked him who he wished to give this doll to. "It's the doll that my sister loved most and wanted so much. I wanted to gift her for her birthday. I have to give the doll to my mommy so that she can give it to my sister when she goes there." His eyes were so sad while saying this. "My sister has gone to be with God. Daddy says that mommy is going to see God very soon too, so I thought that she could take the doll with her to give it to my sister." My heart nearly stopped. The little boy looked up at me and said, "I told Daddy to tell mommy not to go yet. I need her to wait until I come back from the mall." Then he showed me a very nice photo of him, where he was laughing. He then told me I want mommy to take my picture with her so my sister won't forget me. "I love my mommy and I wish she doesn't have to leave me, but Daddy says that she has to go to be with my little sister." Then he looked again at the doll with sad eyes, very quietly. I quickly reached for my wallet and said to the boy, "Suppose we check again, just in case you do have enough money for the doll?" He said, "Okay, I hope I do have enough." I added some of my money to his, without him seeing, and we started to count it. There was enough for the doll and even some spare money. The little boy said, "Thank you God for giving me enough money." Then he looked at me and added, "I asked last night before I went to sleep for God to make sure I had enough money to buy this doll, so that mommy could give it to my sister." He heard me. I also wanted to have enough money to buy a white rose for my mommy, but I didn't dare to ask God for too much. But he gave me enough to buy the doll and the white rose. My mommy loves white roses. I finished my shopping in a totally different state from when I started. I couldn't get the little boy out of my mind. Then I remembered a local newspaper article 2 days ago, which mentioned a drunk man in a truck, who hit a car occupied by a young woman and a little girl. The little girl died right away, and the mother was left in a critical state. The family had to decide whether to pull the plug on the life-sustaining machine, because the young woman would not be able to recover from the coma. Was this the family of the little boy? 2 days after this encounter with the little boy, I read in the newspaper that the young woman had passed away. I couldn't stop myself. I bought a bunch of white roses and I went to the funeral home where the body of the young woman was exposed for people to see and make last wishes before her burial. She was there, in her coffin, holding a beautiful white rose in her hand with the photo of the little boy and the doll placed over her chest. I left the place, teary-eyed, feeling that my life had been changed forever. The love that the little boy had for his mother and his sister is still, to this day, hard to imagine. And in a fraction of a second, a drunk driver had taken all this away from him. Moral: respect life, follow and obey rules. Don't make anyone else to pay and bear for your mistakes. Do not make the mistakes which cost others something that can never be replaced. Always have a giving hand and extend your help to those in need and sorrow. Smartest man in the world. A doctor, a lawyer, a little boy and a priest were out for a Sunday afternoon flight on a small private plane. Suddenly, the plane developed engine trouble. In spite of the best efforts of the pilot, the plane started to go down. Finally, the pilot grabbed a parachute and yelled to the passengers that they better jump, and he himself bailed out. Unfortunately, there were only 3 parachutes remaining. The doctor grabbed one and said, "I'm a doctor, I save lives, so I must live," and jumped out. The lawyer then said, "I'm a lawyer and lawyers are the smartest people in the world. I deserve to live." He also grabbed a parachute and jumped. The priest looked at the little boy and said, "My son, I've lived a long and full life. You are young and have your whole life ahead of you. Take the last parachute and live in peace." The little boy handed the parachute back to the priest and said, "Not to worry, father. The smartest man in the world just took off with my backpack." Moral: your job doesn't always define you, but being a good human being does.
The eternal bond of brother and sister.
I was born in a secluded village on a mountain. Day after day, my parents plowed the yellow dry soil with their backs towards the sky. One day, I wanted to buy a handkerchief, which all girls around me seemed to have. So, one day I stole 50 cents from my father's drawer. Father discovered about the stolen money right away. "Who stole the money?" he asked my brother and me. I was stunned, too afraid to talk. Neither of us admitted to the fault, so he said, "Fine, if nobody wants to admit, you both should be punished." Suddenly, my younger brother gripped father's hand and said, "Dad, I was the one who did it." He took the blame and punishment for me. In the middle of the night, all of a sudden, I cried out loudly. My brother covered my mouth with his little hand and said, "Sis, now don't cry anymore. Everything has happened." I will never forget my brother's expression when he protected me. That year, my brother was 8 years old and I was 11 years old. I still hate myself for not having enough courage to admit what I did. Years went by, but the incident still seemed like it just happened yesterday. When my brother was in his last year of secondary school, he was accepted in an upper secondary school in the central part of town. At the same time, I was accepted into a university in the province. That night, father squatted in the yard, smoking packet by packet. I could hear him ask my mother, "Both of our children, they have good results. Very good results." Mother wiped off her tears and sighed, "What is the use? How can we possibly finance both of them?" At that time, my brother walked out. He stood in front of father and said, "Dad, I don't want to continue my study anymore. I have read enough books." Father became angry. "Why do you have a spirit so weak? Even if it means I have to beg for money on the streets, I will send you two to school until you have both finished your studies." And then, he started to knock on every house in the village to borrow money. I stuck out my hand as gently as I could to my brother's face, and told him, "A boy has to continue his study. If not, he will not be able to overcome this poverty we are experiencing." I, on the other hand, had decided not to further my study at the university. Nobody knew that on the next day, before dawn, my brother left the house with a few pieces of worn-out clothes and a few dry beans. He sneaked to my side of the bed and left a note on my pillow, "Sis, getting into a university is not easy. I will go find a job and I will send money to you." I held the note while sitting on my bed, and cried until I lost my voice. With the money father borrowed from the whole village, and the money my brother earned from carrying cement on his back at a construction site, finally, I managed to get to the 3rd year of my study in the university. That year, my brother was 17 years old and I was 20 years old. One day, while I was studying in my room, my roommate came in and told me, "There's a villager waiting for you outside." Why would there be a villager looking for me? I walked out, and I saw my brother from afar. His whole body was covered with dirt, dust, cement and sand. I asked him, "Why did you not tell my roommates that you are my brother?" He replied with a smile, "Look at my appearance. What will they think if they would know that I am your brother? Won't they laugh at you?" I felt so touched, and tears filled my eyes. I swept away dirt and dust from my brother's body, and told him with a lump in my throat, "I don't care what people would say. You are my brother no matter what your appearance." From his pocket, he took out a butterfly hair clip. He put it on my hair and said, "I saw all the girls in town are wearing it. I think you should also have one." I could not hold back myself anymore. I pulled my brother into my arms and cried. That year, my brother was 20 years old and I was 23 years old. After I got married, I lived in the city. Many times my husband invited my parents to come and live with us, but they didn't want. They said once they left the village, they wouldn't know what to do. My brother agreed with them. He said, "Sis, you just take care of your parents-in-law. I will take care of mom and dad here." My husband became the directors of his factory. We asked my brother to accept the offer of being the manager in the maintenance department. But my brother rejected the offer. He insisted on working as a repairman instead for a start. One day, my brother was on the top of a ladder repairing a cable, when he got electrocuted, and was sent to the hospital. My husband and I visited him at the hospital. Looking at the plaster cast on his leg, I grumbled, "Why did you reject the offer of being a manager? Managers won't do something dangerous like that. Now look at you, you are suffering a serious injury. Why didn't you just listen to us?" With a serious expression on his face, he defended his decision. "Think of your brother-in-law, he just became the director. If I, being uneducated, would become a manager, what kind of rumors would fly around?" My husband's eyes filled up with tears, and then I said, "But you lack in education only because of me. Why do you talk about the past?" He said, and then he held my hand. That year, he was 26 years old and I was 29 years old. My brother was 30 years old when he married a farmer girl from the village. During the wedding reception, the master of ceremonies asked him, "Who is the one person you respect and love the most?" Without even taking a time to think, he answered, "My sister." He continued by telling a story I could not even remember. When I was in primary school, the school was in a different village. Every day, my sister and I would walk for 2 hours to school and back home. One day, I lost one of my gloves. My sister gave me one of hers. She wore only one glove and she had to walk far. When we got home, her hands were trembling because of the cold weather. She could not even hold her chopsticks. From that day on, I swore that as long as I lived, I would take care of my sister and would always be good to her. Applause filled up the room. All guests turned their attention to me. I found it hard to speak. In my whole life, the one I would like to thank most is my brother, and in this happy occasion, in front of the crowd, tears were rolling down my face again. Moral: love and care for the one you love every single day of your life. You may think what you did is just a small deed, but to that someone, it may mean a lot. Some relations are made to be last longer, but they still need to be nurtured with love and care. Think before you judge. A doctor entered the hospital in a hurry after being called in for an urgent surgery. He answered the call ASAP, changed his clothes and went directly to the surgery block. He found the boy's father pacing in the hall waiting for the doctor. On seeing him, the father yelled, "Why did you take all this time to come? Don't you know that my son's life is in danger? Don't you have any sense of responsibility?" The doctor smiled and said, "I am sorry, I wasn't in the hospital and I came as fast as I could after receiving the call, and now, I wish you'd calm down so that I can do my work." Calm down? What if your son was in this room right now? Would you calm down? If your own son dies while waiting for the doctor, then what will you do? Said the father angrily. The doctor smiled again and replied, "We will do our best by God's grace, and you should also pray for your son's healthy life." Giving advices when we're not concerned is so easy, murmured the father. The surgery took some hours, after which the doctor went out happy. "Thank goodness. Your son is saved." And without waiting for the father's reply, he carried on his way, running by saying, "If you have any questions, ask the nurse. Why is he so arrogant? He couldn't wait some minutes so that I ask about my son's state," commented the father when seeing the nurse minutes after the doctor left. The nurse answered, tears coming down her face, "His son died yesterday in a road accident. He was at the burial when we called him for your son's surgery. And now that he saved your son's life, he left running to finish his son's burial." Moral: never judge anyone, because you never know how their life is and what they're going through.
Subscribe our channel for more best speeches, topics, and stories. Enjoy them and also increase your English listening power.
Father and son conversation. One day, the father was doing some work and his son came and asked, "Daddy, may I ask you a question?" Father said, "Yeah, sure, what it is?" So his son asked, "Dad, how much do you make an hour?" Father got a bit upset and said, "That's none of your business. Why do you ask such a thing?" Son said, "I just want to know. Please tell me, how much do you make an hour?" So, the father told him that I make Rs. 500 per hour. "Oh," the little boy replied, with his head down. Looking up, he said, "Dad, may I please borrow Rs. 300? The father furiously said, "If the only reason you asked about my pay is so that you can borrow some money to buy a silly toy or other nonsense, then march yourself to your room and go to bed. Think why you are being so selfish. I work hard every day and do not like this childish behavior." The little boy quietly went to his room and shut the door. The man sat down and started to get even angrier about the little boy's questions. How dare he ask such questions only to get some money? After about an hour or so, the man had calmed down and started to think, maybe there was something he really needed to buy with that Rs. 300, and he really didn't ask for money very often. The man went to the door of little boy's room and opened the door. "Are you sleeping, son?" he asked. "No, Daddy, I'm awake," replied the boy. "I've been thinking, maybe I was too hard on you earlier," said the man. "It's been a long day and I took out my aggravation on you. Here's the R'(S.300 you asked for." The little boy sat straight up, smiling. "Oh, thank you, Dad," he yelled. Then, reaching under his pillow, he pulled some crumpled up notes. The man, seeing that the boy already had money, started to get angry again. The little boy slowly counted out his money, then looked up at his father. "Why do you want money if you already had some?" The father grumbled. "Because I didn't have enough, but now I do," the little boy replied. "Daddy, I have Rs. 500 now. Can I buy an hour of your time? Please come home early tomorrow. I would like to have dinner with you." Father was dumbstruck. Moral: it's just a short reminder to all of you working so hard in life. We should not let time slip through our fingers without having spent some time with those who really matter to us, those close to our hearts. If we die tomorrow, the company that we are working for could easily replace us in a matter of days. But the family and friends we leave behind will feel the loss for the rest of their lives. And come to think of it, we pour ourselves more into work than to our family.
The Giving Tree. Once upon a time in a village, there was an old man named Jerry. He hadn't seen his son for few years and wanted to meet his son who lived in a city. He started his journey and came to a city where his son used to work and stay. He went to the place from where he used to get letters long back. When he knocked the door, he was excited and smiled with joy to meet his son. Unfortunately, someone else opened the door. Jerry asked, "I suppose Thomas should be staying in this place?" The person said, "No." He had left the place and shifted to a different location. Jerry was disappointed and just thinking how to meet his son. He started to walk in the street and the neighbors asked Jerry, "Are you looking for Thomas?" Jerry responded by nodding his head. The neighbors gave the present address and office address of Thomas to the Jerry. Jerry thanked them and started towards the path which will lead to his son. Jerry went to the office and asked at the reception counter, "Could you please tell me the location of Thomas in this office?" The receptionist asked, "May I know how you are related to him?" Jerry responded politely by saying, "I'm his father." The receptionist said, Jerry to wait for a moment and rang up to Thomas and conveyed the same. Thomas was shocked and told the receptionist to send his father to the cabin immediately. Jerry entered the cabin and when he saw Thomas, his eyes were filled with tears. Thomas was happy to see his father. They had a simple conversation for a while and then Jerry asked Thomas, "Son, Mom wants to see you. Can you come home with me?" Thomas responded, "No, father. I can't come. I am very busy working for my success and it's hard to manage leave to visit as my hands are full with loads of stressful work." Jerry gave a simple smile and said, "Okay. You made your work. I'll be going back to our village today evening." Thomas asked, "You can stay for few days with me? Please?" Jerry responded after a moment of silence, "Son, you are busy with your tasks. I don't want to make you uncomfortable or become a burden for you." Continued, "I hope if ever had a chance to meet you again, I would be happy." He left the place. After a few weeks, Thomas wondered why his father came alone after a long time. He felt bad for treating his father in a weird manner. He felt guilty for it and took a leave in office for a few days and went to his village to meet his father. When he went to the place where he was born and grew up, he saw that his parents were not there. He was shocked and asked the neighbors, "What happened here? My parents have to be there. Where are they now?" The neighbors gave the address of the place where his parents are staying. Thomas rushed to the place and noticed that the place was like a graveyard. Thomas' eyes were filled with tears and started to walk slowly towards the place. His father Jerry noticed Thomas in a far distance and waved his hand to draw his attention. Thomas saw his father and started to run and hugged him. Jerry asked, "How are you?" and continued, "What a surprise to see you here. I didn't expect that you would be coming to this place." Thomas felt ashamed and kept his head down. Jerry said, "Why are you feeling bad? Has anything wrong happened?" Thomas responded, "No, father." Continued, "It's just I never knew that I would be seeing you in this position in our village." Jerry smiled and said, "I had taken a loan when you moved to a city for your college to pay for your education, then again when you wanted a new car, but due to a loss in farming, I couldn't repay the loan. So I thought of approaching you for a help, but you were very busy and stressed with your work. I just didn't want to burden you with this problem and remained silent, and I had to let go of our home to repay the loan." Thomas whispered, "You could have told me. I'm not an outsider." Jerry turned around and said, "You were very busy and stressed with your work, which made me remain quiet. All we wanted was your happiness. So I kept quiet." Thomas started to cry and hugged his father again. He apologized to his father and asked to forgive him for his mistake. Jerry smiled and said, "No need for that. I'm happy with what I got now. All I want is that you spare some time for us. We love you very much, and at this old age it's hard to travel to see you often." Moral: parents will always be there and give everything they could just to make you happy. We take them for granted. We don't appreciate all they do for us until it's too late. When you find a path of success in your life, carry on, but don't leave your parents behind, as they are the true reason of your success. Dear listener, please subscribe our YouTube channel to increase your English listening power through stories. Do not forget to share your opinions with us in the comments. Thanks for the listening.